so everyone can see the captioning? Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you, Angela. All right. So, yes, I am going to pass this on to Jeff. And Jeff, it is all you from the Alt Text Production Center. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Everybody can hear me, I hope. My name is Jeff Baugher. I'm the ATPC director, which is the Alternate Text Production Center of the California Community Colleges. We decided to do a reintroduction, as we're calling it, because with COVID and with a high degree of turnover, especially within alt media people, there are a lot of people out there that don't know who we are, what we do, or how we came about. So we thought it'd be a good time for us to reintroduce it. About the presenter section, we always do these. I don't think anybody's nearly as interested in who I am as what I do with the Alternate Text Production Center. I've been the director since, I guess it was about 2012. The Alternate Production Center is exactly what it says. It's a production center creating alt media for California community colleges. We've been doing it since about 2002. We were created as an adjunct resource to help all of the community colleges meet their needs for alt media. This is something that was seen as a very large problem in 2002. It was in response to some legal issues that were happening within the CSUs, and the CCCs became very proactive in trying to help you guys out. So as a result, we are here for you, the community colleges, and we like to keep it that way. We try to keep in touch with people as much as possible so that they know what we do and use our resources. It's there, it's for you guys. So we want to make sure you guys take advantage of it. So I'll just talk briefly. This is a pretty short presentation. We're going to talk about who can use our services, of course. I've said all the CCCs. There are some limitations on exactly how you use our services. What is the structure of the ATPC? We've structured it very specifically in order to meet the needs of the community colleges. But as a grant, we try to be as mobile as possible, as flexible as possible. So I am always available for suggestions and things like of that nature for how we organize the CC or the ATPC to meet your guys' needs. What services do we provide specifically right now? We can talk about. And common questions, which I would tell everybody right now, if you go ahead, if you have questions, please remember them for the end of this. We'll have a time where people can ask questions of me. These things usually go one of two ways, which is there's no questions at all, or there are hundreds of them. So if I may suggest, just go ahead and type them in the chat. We will keep them in there. If you provide your name and your college, I will track you down offline after the presentation, make sure that everybody's question gets answered. And then contact information, which is usually pretty important for us, just to make sure that everybody knows exactly how to get a hold of us. So what is needed to use the HPC resources? First of all, it's free. It does not cost anybody's community colleges to use our resources. All of our money has been allocated to us to spend on what you guys need to do. How you guys use us is a different matter, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But in general, any community college, we generally deal with your alt media people within your local office, and they make requests of us, and then we return those requests back to you. The students, usually these three things are the best things to keep in mind for anything to do with alt media. And that is, a student must be registered in a class. Registered is something that can be up for debate. There are continuation courses. There are all kinds of things like that. The way that I have chose to run the HPC and the way I interpret this is anybody that's working at or attending a class at any of our schools, we're going to provide alt media for them as best as we can. I don't differentiate between the various different types of education. I think that all of our students, as well as all the people out there in the field, really care about getting our students what they need. So we're not going to dither about what registered specific classes are. Second one, students must have purchased the book. This is a very specific requirement that needs to be done. The word purchased is the way that they actually put it in a lot of the text. What I would say is think of that more as license to use a book. Any book that is out there that we will then turn into electronic format needs to be legally available to that student. Usually that's in the form of buying it, renting it, or checking it out from a library. I don't really care how the student gets it. The truth is those are modes for someone to get a book for any student, so they should be available for our students as well. Convincing the publishers of that sometimes is a little bit more fun for me. Spend a lot of time talking to publishers. I have people that work for me that have found people that we can deal with at the publishers that understand what we do. It's become much, much nicer than it used to be back in 2008 when I started. It was much more of a wrestling match back then. Things have somewhat loosened up. And then the last thing is that the students must have a qualifying disability, which is fairly self-explanatory. So who are we? One of the things that people don't really know is exactly who we are, how we are structured, and what we do things. We are currently a grant of $1.5 million from the Chancellor's Office. That grant is held by the San Bernardino Community College District. And we actually are an office that is working remote away from the San Bernardino Community College campus. It gives us the ability to be very mobile. We generally deal with all the colleges, so there's no real sense in being attached to one particular college. It's been very good for us to have a sense of distance. Sometimes colleges think that they can use our resources exclusively for them, and we're supposed to be for everyone. So I have created the ATPC and kind of changed over the time that I've been running it. The ATPC is run very, very lean. So instead of going very heavy on staff, we have 3 employees, myself and Marie Zaldivar, who is our Braille manager. She's actually on the call right now. And then we also have a project analyst that helps us with a lot of money, as well as interfacing with the district and the state to make sure things are going well. And then everything else we do is a network of independent contractors. Braille especially, this is the easiest way to run Braille. If you want to find someone that knows Braille, you got to go where they are. Chances are, if you look anywhere near you, you're not going to find one. We have them all over the country. I believe we might even have some contacts that are outside the country. And we use as many of those as we can in order to provide the services we do. We also have electronic text document people that convert and do those things, and they all work from home as well. With COVID, we kind of followed suit with a lot of the colleges that we went remote. After COVID restrictions went away, we continued to do things remote. We actually work extremely well this way. We have an infrastructure that allows us to pass files around and get things done, and then back to the colleges. Another thing that the COVID has opened up for us is we used to have the rule that we would only deal with the colleges directly, and that we didn't have any student contact. That has actually changed. We now actually will mail physical documents directly to students' homes because there's just too many remote classes anymore, and it's the best way to really service those students rather than having to go to the school and then adding logistics to getting things to those students. And then the last part, we used to have 2 prison programs. We only have 1 now. I closed one of them. It was having some problems really producing or doing the things we needed. We have 1 prison program in Ironwood State Prison. We have 24 inmates there, and we actually train them in Braille. We get them literary certified. If they are in the program long enough, we get them actually certified in Nemeth code as well, formats. And then it's very rare, but if we get past those things, we'll actually have them trained in things such as music or other things like that. But a lot of times our prison inmates, they get out for good behavior. It's kind of a contradiction in terms. They usually do really well in our program. They're servicing people outside of the program and really kind of turn their lives around. So they tend to get out. But since they are trained, a lot of them, and I don't know, since 2011, Marie could probably talk to it. I think we currently have 7 of them that are working as contractors for us now that they got out. And we try to keep them involved with the program as much as we can since we've invested so much in them. But while they are in there, we train them. And then once they do know Braille, we actually use them to provide Braille to the students at the community colleges, which kind of segues into what do we do. These are the things that we have currently set up the HBC to provide. The number one thing I'd say that we are used for the most effectively is Braille transcription. This includes mostly textbooks. However, tests, quizzes, handouts are something that we've been trying to incorporate more of lately. It can be logistically very, very difficult to deal with that. If you can imagine having dozens of students and all their classes and all of their faculty all handing out handouts at different times, it gets to be a real mess. But we've kind of come up with some ways to deal with that and deal with handouts and quizzes and such. Braille textbooks, we tend to be used for a wide array of Braille transcription. I think that what has really happened is a lot of the schools really rely on us for things such as Nemeth, Nemeth is the complex code, deals with math and heavy symbol type books, as you can imagine. Learning calculus in Braille can be very difficult. There is a specific code that helps that beyond just literary. Tactile graphics is the next part of that. We do a lot of different graphics. We use mostly POF paper, which is a picture in a flash, which if you guys are not familiar with it, is basically kind of like a plastic paper. It reacts to toner when it's heated. So we actually toast it in a specialized toaster that raises up the ink and gives you a tactile map. We have very specific standards by which we make all of our graphics so that they're easy to differentiate between the various textures and things like that. Campus maps is something we do. Graphs, textbooks, illustrations tends to be, what is it? The geography books are like the worst of the worst because there's so many pictures. But electronic textbooks, this is a bulk, a good deal of what we do is electronic textbooks. A lot of schools use this just for our ability to deal with publishers. And we will get an electronic textbook and then give it to the school without really providing accommodations within that textbook. We just get them electronic text as fast as we can, and then they will customize the book for their student based on what they know of what the student's needs are. We also do some markup of books as well, depending. Mostly when people make the request, they can ask us what they want us to do, and we'll mark it up. One of the things, MathML, is something that we will actually provide math books that have been marked up in MathML. Can make things a lot easier for math and complex things like that. And large print is something that actually is on a resurgence. It kind of went away, and large print has been coming back more and more in the last 2 years, it seems. So, and the last thing, which doesn't really affect most of the people here, is we have a fee-for-service program in which we provide a lot of our services to institutions outside of the community colleges, but we do it for fee. And that money is then kept with us, and then we use it to expand our services, increase our hardware, and do other specialized things like that. Common questions, if there are any questions, I don't see anything that's come in through yet, but maybe we can open up here in a few seconds. But a lot of what I get are kind of some of the basic things. The California Education Code, section 67302 and .5, were kind of the reasons why the ATPC was created. It basically said that we should create a center by which we will actually house books and these types of resources for the community colleges. And the beauty of it is that the language they specifically say is that any textbook that any publisher anywhere gives to any of us, and I mean me, you, any of the schools, we are all considered a single entity, and that includes the CSUs and the UCs. Any book that is given to us is immediately given to all of us. So we can actually share, redistribute that text, and deal with it however we want, which was kind of nice back in the day. It's not as big of a problem right now. The publishers don't really try to push permissions and that kind of stuff as much as they used to, but they still do. The other thing he's saying was the publishers have to give us permission. They basically say, you know, we can't force you to do it, but if you want to sell your books in California, yeah, you have to comply with the way our education code works. It disallows encryption and protections on those files as well, which is a huge thing that is still probably a problem for a lot of people. I know there's a few people shaking their head out there right now, probably, because that is kind of a problem with specific names I can think of right off the top of my head. And it poses a 10-day limit to responses. And basically, the way I like that and the way the ATPC is structured ourselves is that if we say, hey, publisher, give me a book, and they don't answer me for 10 days, then I say, okay, I have de facto permission to do whatever I want. And then I do whatever I want. I can scan it. I can do whatever. And that's the way we've kind of set up our request system, that we wait 10 days. At that point, we say, hey, publishers waive their right to really do anything about this. So if you want us to create the book, we will for you, or you can do it yourself. And then this is the last page of the contact us. I'm Jeff Baugher again. I'm the director of the grant. Feel free to contact me anytime. Marie Zaldivar is our Braille manager. We are the two people that mostly interact with the colleges. And then the two email addresses we have at the bottom, we've created those as lists. they work really well in that if you send something to etext at hpc.net, it will go to a range of people within our organization, and someone will get back to you about that etext. And Braille is the same thing. But if you don't know who to talk to, or you're like, oh, I don't want to bother Jeff, go ahead and send it to one of the etext or the Braille, and me and Marie will be notified of what's going on. So it works very well to send it to those things, and then it's kind of the catch-all of whatever's going on. But if you could, please either write messages, or I don't know how else we'll do questions that are coming in, and I can answer them as they come in.
Mhm. Yeah, there are a couple. Yeah.
Okay, I see Karen Chandler. Do you help with book remediation for screen readers? Yes, we can. In the most part, it seems like I would say 90% of most schools, what they have us do is take an electronic file, and we will do some basic headers. We will strip out graphics and put them into a file of additionals, as well as tables, those kind of things, unless we get specific requests of, hey, I need to have 3 levels of headers, or don't worry about headers at all. We occasionally get people that just want a text and with nothing else in it. So we will do however you guys feel that you need to do these things. But we kind of did determine, okay, the base way that we do things, if we actually do convert a file, is that we do 2 levels of headers. We do page numbers so that students can actually navigate the file a little bit easier. And then usually we will split out additionals into a separate file. Publishers not providing content in an accessible format. Can you communicate to them and influence them? For example, if they provide PowerPoint files for instructors, or they have PDF files with instructions for students. This is a great question. So basically, can I influence publishers? Can I deal with all those gotchas and those heartaches? We do have contacts in a lot of these publishers. It's not always great. Sometimes we can get stuff where they're like, hey, here's a dump of all that text, and then we can from there do whatever remediation we need to do. However, how much influence do I have with publishers? I don't have much, unfortunately, like most of us. It's become kind of a problem recently because we have so much remote classes. We take requests in that we will allow a lot more easy transfer of files going back and forth with the ATPC, instead of us relying on getting those files from the publishers. A lot of times now what we're getting is stuff that's coming from Canvas, from the people in the field. And then if we can facilitate a little bit better of you guys giving us what you need, we then do whatever we need to do to remediate that and give it back to you. I think it's going to help out with some of the ways we work with the schools. Yeah, online courses. It's just, yeah. Online courses are interesting. They are a two-edged sword, as we all know. The next question, are you working much with OER publications? No, we aren't currently working directly with them. However, we do get a lot of OER type books. Some of them are great, and they've actually done quite a bit to make them accessible. Some of them are terrible. We, in general, haven't really treated them as a different way of publishing than any others, except that the electronic text is usually much more accessible, and you don't have to worry about permissions or anything because they're mostly under Open Commons license, which is very nice. So you're working on using or creating OER. Can these OER texts be submitted for Braille text secrets? Yeah, and that's basically the same thing. And yeah, if we did get the OER, and this is kind of why I was talking about before, we need to be able to take books from the schools, I think, a little bit faster than we have before, because we've always been set up to deal directly with publishers. But yeah, we can then get the OER, we can write it up, and then we can actually house it within our catalog as well. It would be really nice to get some sort of a partnership with some of OER initiative to deal with the books that are there before, so we could have a more proactive approach. But that comes into some of the problems with our grant and how we are restricted in spending our money, which usually is that there's supposed to be a student that I'm responding to their need instead of the proactive approach to things. Yes, OER, right? Yeah. Portable crows, yeah. Yeah, there's always people that say these things, and I love it. I'm right there with you. I feel the pain of how difficult it is to deal with some of these things. You guys are going to deal a lot with Braille today, I guess. I think your next presentation, I got to see some of it, which is going to be Braille. And I would say that as a segue into that presentation, they are going to teach you a lot on how to create Braille. One of the big caveats we've always told people is it's really, really useful for you guys to know Braille. It's very useful for you to be able to produce Braille. There are a lot of programs out there that can help you produce Braille. It's also one of the ways you can get in trouble because if you do more and more complex books, we can have students that get left behind, and sometimes they're not always very good at advocating for themselves and saying, hey, this isn't working for me. So if you are dealing with Braille, please do not feel shy about talking to us, especially when it comes to things like the complex stuff, anything that you have with the more complex codes, that kind of thing. We can actually help with those. Most of the lawsuits and the OER or the OCR complaints that I've dealt with over the last 10 years have usually originated from Braille and not having accurate things. Usually it comes with the math and some of those tests and those things where there's some miscommunication. That miscommunication has then caused the student to not do well in the class, and so things kind of devolve from there. But please, if there's anything to do with alt media, feel free to loop us in. There are some colleges that have actually used us to talk with their people or with the students and kind of develop ways of dealing with things. We're always available for that. That's why we exist. And I don't see any other questions, so I will turn it over.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jeff. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you coming and kind of said doing a reintroduction of the ATPC. And hopefully those that are in attendance that may not have utilized your services now know they have another place they can reach out to for students and for that help. We appreciate you. Thank you. All right, and I am going to share my screen, and we are going to go into our next workshop